So from the start of the game, we saw that United were taking up their usual 2-3-2-3 possession shape, with Crystal Palace not really being focused on applying pressure to United in their defensive third, allowing Varane and Lisandro Martinez to move out and have the ball in the middle third, with Patrick Vieira's side choosing to sit off very passively in a vertically and horizontally compact 4-4-2 shape. However, unlike most other teams' 4-4-2 defensive shapes, with Arsenal's being a great example, Palace is a lot more congested in the centre of the pitch, because rather than instructing the front two of Edouard and Mateta to engage the two United centre-backs when they had possession, they were instead told to sit close to each other and to the midfield double pivot of Hughes and Doucouré behind them, looking to stop United being able to work the ball from the centre-backs into the double pivot, which at times was either Eriksen or Casemiro. But before I go any further, let me tell you why you should consider downloading the OneFootball app, because it's become my all-in-one place for keeping up to date with the latest football news, whilst also being able to follow Manchester United specifically, giving me access to all the latest news, videos and articles. It's also the best place to keep up to date with any live football, as during the World Cup they had a live ticker for any updates on the match, confirmation for the lineups as well as a rating for each player, and also all the team stats you need as well to get a better in-depth view of how the game played out rather than just the goals scored. So if you want to support the channel and think you'd also be interested in looking at the OneFootball app, I'll leave it linked in the description and comments below. And so this made it incredibly hard for United to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch, as even if they shifted the ball wide, looking to open up a different angle for a pass into one of the central midfielders, we would see one of the Crystal Palace front two dropping onto the United player, usually Casemiro or Eriksen, in that deep single pivot position. And so in order to open up this very well coordinated defensive system, United would firstly look to utilise a back three in possession at times, having Wan-Bissaka drop slightly deeper on the right side, giving United a wider base to then circulate the ball around Palace's front two. And this was effective at opening up space on the far side, so that when United circulated the ball across the back line to the player on the far side, in this case it's Lisandro Martinez, he has the time and space to drive out with possession, and in doing so moves the ball past the Palace front two. However, because Palace's wide and central midfielders sat tightly together and the back line retained a fairly high position, squeezing the space between the lines, in order to manufacture openings, United needed positional rotations. Over the last few weeks, in nearly all of my Manchester United match analysis videos, all of which will be linked in the description, I have spoken about how Ten Hag likes to use a 3-1-6 possession shape, or more specifically a 3-1-3-3 shape. And usually this consists of one of the fullbacks, Wan-Bissaka on the right for example, inverting infield to create a temporary back three, giving United a wide base to circulate possession around the front two as I previously mentioned, and then most of the time it will be Casemiro sitting as the deep single pivot, Luke Shaw pushing up from the left back position into an advanced wide position, which allows Rashford, Fernandes and Eriksen to sit high centrally between the lines of the opposition's midfield and defensive lines. However, we saw United players begin to rotate their positions, likely in an attempt to draw a Palace player near them out of position, opening up space somewhere else for another United player to drop into. And so we saw different players popping up in a multitude of different positions in possession, with sometimes Eriksen dropping deep over to the left side, creating a temporary back three with Lisandro Martinez in the centre, with Casemiro also pushing up further forward in between the lines, and now Fernandes was a player dropping deep into that single pivot position. Sometimes it would be Luke Shaw pushing into an advanced central position in the half space, and sometimes he'd be the player to hold a wider position, with Rashford moving infield into that space between Palace's right-sided midfielder and the central midfielder on that side. And so by having players receiving the ball in these threatening positions between the lines whilst on the move, it meant that Palace would find it a lot harder to cut the passing lanes and press individual players than if United had still used this same possession shape, but the players had remained static in those positions. However, despite United definitely looking a lot better in moving the ball through these congested zones when they did change to this 3-1-6 possession shape, they had a lot more success when they were able to use a quicker transition in attack, looking to catch the Palace forward and midfield lines higher up the pitch, and Weghorst played a massive part in this. Now, we'll do a separate, more in-depth tactical video about the role that Weghorst will play in this United side in the coming weeks, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell to make sure you don't miss out on that. But just briefly, Weghorst, as Anthony Martial does when he plays, provides United with a target for a direct vertical pass, which was best utilised in this game when United were able to regain possession after a Palace attack in their own defensive third, And so with Palace's midfield line higher up the pitch than they were when they were dropping back into their compact 4-4-2 shape, there was a space behind Decore and Hughes for Weghorst to drop into, opening up the passing lanes for one of United's deeper players, maybe Shaw, Eriksson or Lisandro Martinez, to feed an incisive pass into his feet, and from here the United players in deeper positions are able to burst forward, providing the runs in behind Weghorst's deeper movement, and from here Weghorst's one-touch into play and subtle ball control was fantastic, able to link play multiple times, whether this was via a quick layoff for Fernandes to drive ahead with the ball, or when United won the ball back inside their defensive third, the ball gets moved into Rashford, and after playing a pass inside to Fernandes, you can see Weghorst, rather than looking to break in behind the Palace back line, instead makes a run towards the ball, and in doing so, dragging the right-sided centre-back Richards with him, opening up that passing lane for Fernandes to play a first-time 1-2 with Weghorst, whose weight of pass is fantastic, allowing Fernandes to completely dance around Will Hughes, and on the far side you can see that Marcus Rashford is bursting into the space in behind Richards on that right side of Palace's back line, and Fernandes threads a pass into the space. And so in the space of 4, 5 or maybe even 6 seconds, United have gone from winning the ball back in their defensive third to utilising a series of quick passes, which is enabled through Weghorst's deeper movement to ultimately set Rashford free into a 1v1 in the Palace box, from where incidentally Marc Guéhi, the Crystal Palace centre-back, actually defends exceptionally with a block tackle to dispossess Rashford in this position. But despite Palace defending pretty well for the majority of the first half, the opening goal came from a few lapses in concentration from individual players. We see here that as Eriksson has the ball on the left side, just moving into the final third, that Decore is a man to confront him as he moves forward with the ball. Nathaniel Klein, the right back, is positioned high, anticipating Rashford to receive possession, with Will Hughes on Bruno Fernandes in a more central position and Guéhi on Weghorst, and Richards, the right-sided centre-back, essentially is a free man. But as the ball gets moved into Marcus Rashford, you can see here that despite Guéhi being tight to Weghorst, because Palace have already seen how good Weghorst is both physically and technically, when dropping to receive possession, Richards becomes drawn over to that position, anticipating that Eriksson or Rashford may look for a pass into his feet. So with Rashford on the ball, there's a massive space between Klein and Richards, and Decore just switches off, allowing Eriksson to just jog goal side of him before bursting into the space between Palace's centre-back and right-back. Rashford's timing and weight of pass is perfect, and from here Decore can't make up the ground to stop Eriksson, getting into the position to play a left-footed cutback, and Will Hughes gets drawn towards the ball. And Bruno Fernandes very astutely is able to recognise this, holding his position on the edge of the box, and when Eriksson's cutback finds his feet, he is efficient and effective at getting the ball out of his feet with one touch to set himself before placing the ball with power into the far corner of the net past Guita, giving United the lead on the stroke of half time. In the second half, Crystal Palace definitely reacted a lot more offensively after going behind, looking to engage United a bit higher up the pitch and now moving Alessi into more of a central position, and using more of a traditional 4-2-3-1 defensively, with Alessi sticking on Casemiro rather than working in tandem with Mateta and defending as a front two. But behind Alessi, Palace's midfield double pivot and the back line were being a lot more assertive and aggressive with the United players when they would receive the ball in these advanced positions, being a lot tighter, and so accompany this with United not having as much positional rotation amongst the two triangles of their fullback, central midfielder and winger on each side. And United found it a lot harder to firstly push Crystal Palace back and retain possession in their half, and also to progress the ball into the final third, using Weghorst as a target man as they did in the first half. And so because of this, Palace seemed to be able to win a lot more 50-50 duels, and just being quicker to get to loose balls in the centre of the park, which gave them a foothold in the game. In possession, Palace's wide midfielders also retained central positions as they did without the ball when Palace had the ball, and so when Palace were able to win the ball back, they were able to progress the ball up the pitch into attacking positions quite efficiently, with one of Palace's deeper players being able to play a forward pass into the likes of Zaha, Alessi and Edouard, sitting between the lines, and from here after receiving, Palace would have the ball in a central position approaching United's defensive third, with at least 2 or 3 players also able to make runs ahead from these central areas. But also in the second half, because Palace were now able to retain possession a lot better, the game became a lot more 50-50, and we saw Palace getting into these types of positions, with United dropping back into their defensive third and Zaha, Alessi and Edouard all taking up central positions between the lines, with the fullbacks Klein and Mitchell overlapping into these wide positions. But even though the second half was a lot more even than the first, I still didn't think that either side were really able to create much of substance, and this can be reflected as up until the 90th minute, United only had recorded an XG of 0.84 to Palace's 0.37, showing just how few high quality chances were actually created. However, in the last 10 minutes of the match, United encountered two major blows. Firstly, we see that as a pass goes into Bruno Fernandes, Mitchell is able to anticipate it superbly, jumping in front to make the interception, and then as I said before, because Palace's wide players were retaining very narrow central positions, both in and out of possession, Zaha is able to find himself in this central space, which opens up a direct passing lane from Mitchell into Zaha to progress the ball into United's defensive third, and from here as Zaha fronts up Casemiro in the 1v1, you can see that not just Casemiro but United's whole defence do look very fatigued, and so as Zaha knocks the ball past him, Casemiro sees it necessary to bring him down, accepting the yellow card to stop the attack, but it does mean that he will miss the next game against Arsenal, which of course is a massive blow. And from this point onwards, United just failed to see out the game, metaphorically allowing Crystal Palace to keep the gas on their attack and not fully extinguishing it. But to be fair, Alessi's free kick to equalise is one of the best free kicks you'll ever see, with De Gea not being able to do anything about it. But overall, this draw will feel like a loss to United, particularly with the Arsenal game coming up on the weekend, and Casemiro also picking up a suspension. There were, however, a lot of positives. I thought Weghorst showed that he definitely fits the system, and his movement deeper to link the attack works perfectly in tandem alongside the likes of Fernandes and Eriksen because of their ability to play a series of short quick passes alongside Rashford's movement ahead, getting into dangerous positions in behind the opposition's back line. But alongside Weghorst and Fernandes, I thought Wan-Bissaka was phenomenal, particularly from a defensive point of view, making a number of superb sliding tackles where he follows his man and then at the perfect time is able to wrap his long legs around the ball and almost scoop the ball away from the player, as he did in the last few minutes to stop Zaha racing through on goal. But also in possession, Wan-Bissaka didn't show any of the clumsiness or slow-paced action that we have seen from him in the past, and he appears to be linking play a lot more efficiently and overall just showing major improvement in his on-the-ball ability. Now I have got a video coming out soon analysing Wan-Bissaka and whether he does have a future at United long term, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are interested in that and click the bell so you get notified when it comes out. But let me know what you thought of the game in the comments section below. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter for more content, and check out some of my other videos which will be linked in the description as well.